Hello, everyone. It's Mike Schoonover with the 812 Living Group and host of the 812 and You blog. Hey, we're trying to bring you information about your community and events. And we're starting a series where we're going to be talking to some of the insiders in each of the towns, cities, and in Southern Indiana to give you kind of the inside scoop of what's happening in your communities. And so with that in mind, I have a good friend, A.D. Stonecipher, who is a councilman, and he is the chairman of the Redevelopment Commission for the town of Clarksville. A.D., welcome, and thank you for joining us today.
Mike, you're one of my favorite people. Always a pleasure to talk to you, man. I hope our dialogue here will bring some value to your listeners. Let's go. Let's do this.
Hey, yeah, let's jump in. Hey, lots of stuff going on in Clarksville. Love what I'm seeing. Clarksville for so long has kind of been that Veterans Parkway corridor, but we're starting to see activity all around town. And look, big announcement with the Origin Park. For those who may have not heard, tell us what Origin Park is.
Yeah, and I appreciate the question because what the feedback I'm getting from fellow elected officials in neighboring municipalities, and as well as even some of my own constituents, is when they think park, they think, oh, this is going to be something on this is going to be some playground for the kids and maybe have some. And this really is a park on a whole nother level. Just to give you an idea, and I want to stress this is not a Clarksville project. We do have we actually have our own parks board, parks taxing district, and we have a variety of lovely parks throughout Clarksville. But this is outside Clarksville. This is actually private, nonprofit with private donors known as River Heritage Conservancy, or RHC. And they have spent a lot of money already just on design and land acquisition in around what's called Loop Island, which is basically right there along Silver Creek on the New Albany-Clarksville border, where it meets the Ohio River. And we're talking about 600 acres of reclaimed forested land and wetlands. And we're talking about over 30 years, $156 million in investment. They're already moving faster than I ever anticipated with land acquisition. They're already proposing their phase one build out, which would be about $44 million. And they've already got they're already close to getting 30% of that phase one funded privately. And so now we're in talks to try to see, can Clarksville Redevelopment, do a 20% match on phase one. And then we are applying to the state through the Regional Development Authority for 40% of that phase one. So there's a lot of talk going on between the powers that be regionally, statewide, and locally. But there's still a lot of officials and constituents here that think this is a Clarksville Park project, and it's not. We're talking about, I think, Floyd Forks or Bernheim Forest, bigger than Deem Lake. We're talking about something that would also be programmable, like a software, to people's interests and outdoor amenities, right? As well as wildlife habitation. So they're estimating that if this is successful, if we could just retain 3,000 new high-skilled jobs, that will pay for the 156 million over 30 years.
Yeah.
It's big. It's the biggest park project I've ever seen. We're talking like Central Park, New York City.
Yeah.
Big.
Yeah. So I do want to ask you about money, because I'm sure constituents have been asking and are going to ask, but just to set the stage, that's what I've been hearing. Central Park. It looks like there may be some playground areas and things like that, but we're talking about, a loop of walking, biking trails. We're talking about waterway, ponds. There's some kind of structures that are going to be built for, maybe concerts and things like that in the future. I mean, we're talking 600 acres right there on the Ohio River that will, not that we're competing against the other side of the river, but that will essentially kind of blow Waterfront Park out of the water. It'll make it look like a city park, right?
it will blow Waterfront Park out of the water. And that's why I keep trying to tell people this is not even a Southern Indiana project. This is a Louisville Metro regional project. And just to give you an idea, I mean, when you look at, if you go on, the Google Earth satellite nighttime pictures of our metro, of greater metro area, you've got a little over 1 million people around Louisville, right? And in the heart of Louisville, you see this nice dark spot. And that's where Origin Park's going to be. And so you're going to have 1.2 million people within a 20-minute drive of this park, let alone the people that it can potentially pull in from Ohio, Illinois, even parts of Tennessee.
Yeah.
So it's funny because in Clarksville we're known for having our Bass Pro Shop, right? And people from all over the region will come to Bass Pro and they'll buy their stuff, and then they'll go to Red River Gorge, right? Or they'll go to Cumberland Falls. They're going to buy stuff at Bass Pro and go down the street.
Yeah. So let me
be just as much of a draw as any of those locations.
Yeah. So let me ask you a point on that. And you talk about this dark spot, kind of the way that I envisioned it. Maybe somebody planted this in my head is like the Lion King, where they're looking out over the dead space, and it's like, hey, we're going to go reclaim that land and make it something positive. So you talk about people coming here and leaving. This is something where it could come and people come here and now they stay. What are you all seeing or predicting as the potential positive impacts on the community?
Well, it's huge. Like I said, it will pay for itself in just attracting, retaining new jobs, right? As far as amenities, right? As far as quality of life. And that's what we're seeing, especially we're in a race, right? All municipalities in a race, a friendly race against each other, but states are in races against neighboring states as well to attract and retain talent. Especially here in Indiana, where we actually have tax caps on our property taxes. So it's all about attraction and retention of jobs and residents. And we're seeing the demand for that. When you look at the new census data, just came out last week, Indiana's up 5% almost for the decade. But when you look but Clark County is up 10%, mostly due to River Ridge, right? And job growth. But then when you look at high amenity counties that include, towns like Fishers and Carmel, they're up 20% in the last 10 years. And they're attracting and retaining those high skilled jobs. And that loop feeds itself, right? Then more employers come, more high paying jobs come. We're in a new era where it's not just about jobs. You have to have the amenities to get people to stay. And you see that all across the United States right now.
So it's certainly would expect it to bring in some revenue. We're going to be able to attract and retain talent. And people say, well, how is all that possible? And I'm going to put a link to the Origin Park website. You can see this full plan. I mean, you look at what they're bringing, and at the end of the day, you and I might look at these kind of positive consequences, but at the end of the day, it is going to be this beautiful reclaiming of land for the public good.
That's what's so unique about this project too, for those that potentially would be interested in investing and donating. It's a park project, but it's also an environmental project, but it's also a historical project. That piece of land by the falls uniquely has, 10,000 years of history. It's a quality of life project. It's so many things wrapped in one. I think that's why it's been hard to communicate to the public exactly what it is. But originpark.org, you'll get it. If you go to the website and you look around, it will quickly sink in.
Yeah. So let's come back to maybe a lesser desirable topic, but you talked about money. It is a private project. And I'm sure residents are wondering, hey, this is a huge undertaking. Where's this money coming to pay for it? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So at this point, the only tax dollars that's been involved has been on Clarksville's part. We've been doing some minimal land acquisition help for the Conservancy. I think the biggest thing we've done though is we've gone after on our own. We've gone after EPA grants, and over the last 2 years, we got 1.2 million in EPA grants. I had the honor a couple months ago of being on a Zoom call with the press and with the president's deputy director of EPA. And so that is going a long way towards us cleaning up what used to be that old Marathon oil tanker field.
Yeah.
And various parts of the riverfront that are going to be neighboring this park, right? So we've been doing our best to just make Clarksville better in the, on the riverfront and around what will be the park. And then we'll have to be looking to the future towards grants to help us pay for infrastructure improvements once this park really starts to get built out. But like I said, for now, the way we're applying for grants, the best way to think of it is, 40% state and federal, 35% private, and then, Clarksville, along with probably NDOT grants, will try to make up the rest in terms of infrastructure.
Yeah. So the park itself, privately funded, lots of fundraising. You can go to the website and donate if you care to. Town of Clarksville is going to try and build out around that. And you brought up the Main Street. I want to talk about that. Another exciting project. So you got this vision to redevelop Main Street there. To tell us a little bit about that. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought, when I had the privilege of being appointed the chairman, who would have thought how many towns get the opportunity to create a main street from scratch?
Right.
And it's been a wonderful project, but also just, pull your hair out project, because we're dealing with a little street called Warner Avenue, which goes all the way back to Indiana's founding in the early 1800s. And so Warner Avenue is an extremely old street, one of the oldest in the region. And so, we thought, we'll repave this, we'll widen it, we'll put in little parklets along the side and new sidewalks and bike path. And this is all in front of that iconic Colgate clock, what used to be the old Colgate, soap manufacturing. And before that, it was actually Indiana's first prison many, many decades ago. So it's on the National Historic Registry, right? The old Colgate. So, Warner Avenue, surely is, 2 or 3 million, right? Well, just like anytime you start digging in historic area, you find all kinds of surprises, right? So you find old clay pipes that no one knew about. You find, it's just gone round and round. And then you're dealing with the flood wall, right? And dealing with that. And so dealing with property owners to try to get on board with the vision, because, it pretty much was just warehousing and some old, some of the oldest homes in the area being used as rental properties, right? But it will be finished, scheduled on finish. It's taken almost 6 years, but by the end of this year, we'll have the new Main Street, renamed Main Street, finished. If you get a chance, go down there. Beautiful little parklets being created. It's going to be very connective for walkers and bikers. And it's already attracted interest from developers. And so we're really creating a mixed-use downtown development where you will have shops on the first floor and apartments and townhomes as much as high as the fourth floor. But it's been a long slog, and it's been a heavy lift. And I'm thankful that we've had 2 different elected councils now recognize the value of this. To some degree, if you build it, they will come, right? And so, it's exciting because it's going to be right on the riverfront, access to Riverside Drive and the Ohio River Greenway, as well as Ashland Park. And that's what we're hearing from developers, that's what they want. They want towns and cities to zone and build infrastructure that allows for more mixed use. And we talk about the future of living, if we are going to be serious about addressing things like climate change, whether you believe in it or not, if you're going to address climate change and address just cost of living, why would you not want to be able to work, live, and play within the same neighborhood? Right. And not waste all that time, gas and money on a commute.
Right.
Right. And so that's really what we're going for, and that's what we're hearing from developers.
Yeah. And so I'll link to some information on that as well. But kind of that big picture is you're taking a somewhat of a neglected area, rebuilding the infrastructure that you have, and you're trying to attract, local shops and that mixed use development so people can go down there, work, live, and play, as you said, next to the Ohio River. So exciting project there too.
Thanks, Ben.
You did talk about housing availability, so I did want to touch on that too. 812 Living Group, we do have a real estate bent towards what we do. Housing availability is super low right now across southern Indiana. We're seeing that as parts of country. So as availability drops, prices rise. What are you seeing on that in the town of Clarksville, and anything that the council's doing to try and help that?
Yeah, man, I get it. In fact, this new census data last week showed us in Clarksville alone, we're approaching 95% occupancy rate, well above the national 90%. Here's how we're addressing affordable housing. Okay. On one hand, we need more supply across the region. Yep. People are coming here for jobs. They're finding that Southern Indiana and the Louisville market are affordable places to live and raise a family. And there's lots of great amenities. And it's close to other regional cities, right? So, but we have not kept up with the demand, and there's various reasons for that. You could blame, there's not enough skilled building labor. There's some of the zoning, old school ways of thinking about zoning are probably outdated. For example, on this riverfront, we're not going to be zoning for, business level 2 or business level 1. It's going to be what we call form-based code zoning, where all we care about is the outside aesthetics. Yeah. Okay. And then you can have whatever business inside you want. So, right, that creates more flexibility.
Sure.
As far as your local economy goes. So you're going to see a lot of cities and towns move towards that form-based coding for their zoning rules. Also too, we have to think about some density. I know a lot of people, they want to keep the Mayberry feel of their community, that, thinking everyone should have a, residential traditional home. But that's not what the younger generations necessarily want. They don't want the expense of the maintenance and upkeep. And so I think we can have both. I think you're going to see cities and towns really experiment with these enclaves of mixed use that have a little more density, but then still keeping those traditional, residential one home neighborhoods. And so we can have both, and we have to address supply. We have to address zoning rules. That'll go a long way to addressing high demand and short supply. Another thing that we have to think about too is when it comes to older towns and communities like ours, we need to be creative with assisting, first-time flippers or even maybe first-time home buyers to maybe look at a property they would normally pass by. But if the bones are good and the plumbing's good, maybe redevelopment commissions can provide some matching grants for a new facade. We're experimenting with that right now.
Yeah.
Just know that, local officials have heard, they get it, and they're trying to address it, but it's complicated, right? It takes everybody to be involved to address affordability.
Yeah, sure. Well, you've got the big park project, you've got Main Street, there's so many things that we didn't touch on, Bolt and Tie. We're definitely going to have you back at the risk of making this seem like you're on a debate stage or anything, and just give you closing thoughts. If you have to say something about current state or future of Clarksville, what would you say to your constituents?
I was just saying, Clarksville is very representative of our region. We're growing. There's going to be some growing pains, but we've always been resilient. We've always been a very resilient community. Greater Louisville area. It's in our DNA. It's in our history, and so there's a lot to be proud about. And we just have to be open-minded and flexible about, like I said, being open to some enclaves of density. And I would say too, for anyone who's listening, maybe you're not a developer, maybe you're not even in a home yet. don't underestimate the influence you can have on your local government, and don't underestimate them as a partner with you, whether it's flipping your first home, right? Whether it's in, providing ideas for improving infrastructure. Don't underestimate your influence, but also don't underestimate leveraging your local government to help you find a way to find the funding towards whatever real estate project you have envisioned. You might be surprised how much your local government is willing to assist. And for taxpayers that balk at that, I say you also have to trust your local government that they're going to make investments that will reap returns. Right. And if we just went pure libertarian free market with it all, we could, but then I say to people, are you willing to commit to living in your home for 60 years to see that full cycle turnover, especially for commercial real estate, right? Are you willing to see your local school district tank for a few years before it comes back? So there's, right, there's a balance to everything.
Sure.
Yeah.
He's AD Stonecipher, Councilman, Town of Clarksville, and Chairman of the Redevelopment Commission. AD, I'm going to put some more information and links to the info that we talked about in the blog post, but thank you for joining us today and giving us your time.
My pleasure, man. Let's do it again.
All right. Thank you. Hey, if you'd like to have updates on Southern Indiana events, news, and real estate information you can use delivered directly to your email inbox, visit us at 812living.com/blog. That's 812living.com/blog, and sign up for alerts.